Korean punk is by far one of the most fascinating forms of punk rock. While punk originated in the US and was later shaped into different sounds in countries like the UK and Japan, South Korea's take on the genre is equally unique, blending cultural influences with various foreign genres. I won't be diving into the entire history of the genre in this video, but I will highlight some key examples and explore what you can learn from these bands to apply to your own music. One key distinction that sets Korean punk, also known as Chalsun or Jolsun punk, apart from its counterparts is its relatively late emergence. While the Japanese scene traces its roots back to the late 70s, with hardcore-leaning bands like SS and the Stalin, and the UK had 70s bands like the Damned and the Sex Pistols, blending rock and roll and garage influences, the South Korean punk scene didn't emerge until the 1990s. This later start allowed it to absorb a wide range of styles, including influences from prominent Western punk bands of the 80s and early 90s, as well as the pioneers of the 1970s. This unique combination helped shape its own distinct identity. Probably the best way to describe the sound of early Korean punk is simply fun. These bands often blended a wide range of styles and subgenres to create something unique. A few key bands to start with are No Brain, Crying Nut, Rux and Lazybone. Crying Nut and No Brain, in particular, are two of the most influential bands from the mid-90s scene, helping to not only pioneer the Korean punk scene, but also the indie rock and independent music scene in South Korea. If you take a listen to No Brain's 1999 release, Youth 98, you can hear how they effectively blend styles like ska, hardcore and oi, all into a single track. And similarly with the title track to Crying Nut's debut album, Speed Up Losers. Additionally, there was heavy influence from street punk. Bands like Sham 69, The Casualties and Cocksparrow, along with the 90s counterparts such as Rancid, had a significant impact on the sound of Korean acts like Rux and Spiky Brats. Along with acts like Lazybone and Scar Sucks, covering the more ska-influenced side of things. In terms of production, there are strong influences from 90s producers like Ryan Green and Jerry Finn in the guitar tones and drum sounds many of these bands use. High-gain Mesa and 5150 style sounds are prevalent, delivering a tone that leans more towards metal compared to the cleaner, jangly tones often associated with late 90s to early 2000s Japanese punk and indie bands. These tones work really well when juxtaposed to something like a cleaner verse section and a heavy chorus, which is why you'll often hear this sound in ska punk. They're also great for chunky palm-muted parts like this. In addition to some bands drawing from that distinctly 90s production style, there's also a lot of experimentation, especially as the genre evolved through subsequent generations. For example, throwback sounds are often blended with more modern production techniques. Galaxy Express's 2018 release, Electric Jungle, is a great example of this, blending the raw early punk sound of the Ramones' debut, complete with the bass being panned to one side of the mix, with a more live, aggressive feel. The Vegas combined a ton of different punk styles on their 2017 album Bluegill, which almost sounds to me like a modern update on a record like Pink Flag by Wire. While the Moonshiners, led by a former member of No Brain, combine a lot of elements of 60s rock and roll. I guess they're not technically a punk band, however I felt I had to include them anyway, as they're a personal favourite of mine. By far, one of the neatest aspects of Korean punk is how much the scene is still thriving to this day. Along with many of those first generation bands still being active, there's also a huge number of younger bands carrying the music forward. If you're big into hardcore, then Slant bring a nice modern punch to that style. If skate punk is your thing, drinking boys and girls choir are easily among the best around today. For fans of melodic hardcore or more technical styles of punk, Sonic Stones would be for you. If pop punk is more your flavour, particularly the late 90s to early 2000s sounds, then give Riot Kids a listen. Or if you prefer a more classic sound, check out the self-proclaimed post-Jostin punk band Rum Kicks. If you'd like to learn more about non-Western styles of punk, then check out my video on the distinct sound of Japanese punk bass next.